Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Funnel Vision Show. I'm very excited for our next guest because he's been a CEO for a really big digital marketing institute. In fact, the Digital Marketing Institute, having helped thousands, tens of thousands of digital marketers get certified and level up. And it's going to be really cool to have a conversation from that side of the spectrum. My guest today is Ken Fitzpatrick. Ken, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks a million. Nice to be on.
Nice to have you here. I'm looking forward to our conversation. As we always do with the Funnel Vision Show, we always start with your not so humble bragging rights. In other words, what have you been able to do for your clients? What have you done for your own business? Why should people listen?
Sure. I think when you mentioned this to me, I said maybe it's what your mom might say about you, that if she was describing you. But I think I'm going to start by saying I'm quite old. So I'm a pretty long-term veteran in the internet and digital space. Probably 20 years at sort of C-level in that space, and over 30 years in total. And during that time, I've been CEO actually of 6 different internet or digital businesses. And I've led 3 successful exits of companies, and I have been lucky enough to be part of a team that's built 2 global leaders in the field. So 6, 3, and 2 is probably the way to think of that. And I'm based here in Dublin, Ireland. I live here with my wife and 2 grown-up kids and a dog. And I'm a long-time Liverpool Football Club supporter and a long-suffering Raiders supporter. So.
Nice. And with the Digital Marketing Institute, you've been CEO or former CEO. Congratulations on your new role, which is very, very recent. In fact, at the time of recording this episode, it happened this week. But you were part of the Digital Marketing Institute for over 11 years as CEO. Walk me through a little bit of what the Digital Marketing Institute is, what you've been able to do for some clients, and why people come to the Digital Marketing Institute.
Yeah, so look, it's essentially a training and certification business in digital marketing. So we teach people how to do digital marketing, whether they want to go deep, whether they want light touch, at different stages of their career and at different levels in the organization. We're the biggest at what we do in the world. We've now certified over 75,000 people. We've about 330,000 members. We're operating in over 100 countries around the world. So our big focus, I suppose, was trying to create a standard that would raise the bar for everybody in terms of skills, and then become the badge and the standard that people would have on their resume, that employers would look at and say, yeah, this person knows how to do the job because they have this certification or this badge. And I think we've managed to achieve that, starting from very much a classroom training business and working all the way through over a period of 13, 14 years. As you say, I was with the business for 11, and now we're owned by a UK education business called BPP Education Group, who I've just joined in my new role.
That's pretty incredible to think about. 75,000 certifications, 330,000 members. Let's take it back to, year one. How did you get into this position? How did you, what was the business like when you first joined? And what happened over the course of the 11 years for you to kind of help it grow and go to that next level?
I think there was some key points as we went through it. The first was that I mentioned we started as a classroom training business. And the problem with a classroom-based business is it's very difficult to scale. So we moved the business online, and all of our programs are now delivered in an online learning environment. And that effectively allowed us to look across the globe and become a global business. That was a huge turning point for us, to kind of walk away from something that was working to something that we didn't quite know how it would work out. That was one big area. The second big area was we hired a really good bunch of people in the management team who were well capable of running a bigger business than DMI was at the time. And that really propelled us forward because they brought expertise and specialisms in areas that we just didn't have before that. And so that was the second huge thing. And then the third one, the real tipping point, I think, for me was when we did a partnership with the American Marketing Association. So if you want to study to be a certified digital marketer with the American Marketing Association, it's actually a Digital Marketing Institute program that you study. And then when you're finished and you graduate, you get a cert from the American Marketing Association and a cert from Digital Marketing Institute. And what that did was give us credibility in the biggest addressable market that there is in the US amongst digital marketers. And now the US is the single biggest market for the business. So I would say those are probably the three things. There might be one additional one, which was we were able to license our program. So those three or four really were the key points where we got a sort of a turbo boost added to what we were trying to do.
What about on the flip side? What about the challenges that you faced over kind of those 11 years? I'm sure there were some days, is there a moment where you can remember like you were laying in bed at night and you're like, how am I going to solve this thing?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think probably the biggest challenge with any, we were sold first in 2017 to a US growth equity firm called Spectrum Equity. And we were growing very fast before that and things were going well. But a lot of your listeners will understand that cash is king when you're running a business, and managing cash flow was the most difficult thing that we had to do. So you're trying to grow the business, you're trying to reinvest in the business, and you're also trying to survive from a cash perspective. So that was the toughest of times because we had a successful business and we had a growing business. But managing cash flow is just so difficult when you're in that stage. And then when we were able to complete a transaction, we received further investment. That a problem sort of went away. But it's very difficult to think long term when you're looking to get the bills paid this month. That's what I think is the single biggest challenge of trying to scale a growing business.
Yeah, it's funny because it doesn't. It doesn't change whether you're just getting started and you're under $1 million, or you get to $10 million, you get to $50 million. It doesn't really matter. It's always there, and it's just with slightly bigger numbers. But overall, you're still in the same problem.
Yeah, and it may be something that you look at over a longer time frame. Sometimes as you get bigger, it may be you can look at it in a slightly longer time horizon than when you're a bit smaller. It's much more week to week in terms of how the decisions you're making. But you're right, it never quite goes away.
Talk me through, you've been at this, this game in this digital marketing space for 11 plus years, and before that, 20 years overall. But let's talk about the certification aspect. What were you certifying people on in the early years? What are you kind of focused on now? How has the education of digital marketing evolved?
That's a really good question. So what I would say has changed in the more recent past is people are looking for more specialisms in different areas, like social media, for example. I want to be a certified specialist in social media, or I want to be a certified specialist in search marketing, for example. But it's interesting that most people still want just the certification in the core principles that apply across digital marketing, whether that be search, e-commerce, social, strategy, whatever it is. So that's the thing that's remained kind of the same over a period of time. But people are definitely now looking for shorter programs. People are looking for smaller types of learning, more bite-sized. That has definitely been something that has kind of changed over the years. And now it's all about teach me about AI. That's the latest sort of set of trends that people have.
Honestly, that was where I was going to go next. I'd love your take on AI and how has it changed in terms of both the certification? How has it changed in terms of how we educate people? You think of, you learn basic kind of math back in the day with, pen, paper, and you do simple math. And then you're like, okay, well, now I have a phone. Do I really need this? Like, do I, and you kind of, technology has kind of made some of these simple skills redundant in a sense. Like, well, I don't need to know geography. I can Google it and I know what city is this, right? So how do you see AI playing into that role? Like, where are people going? How are marketers going to evolve with AI?
Yeah, look, I think a couple of things about that. First of all, a friend of mine asked me the other day, I was asking him what his phone number was because I actually couldn't remember what his phone number was because we don't, as you say, have to remember that stuff anymore.
And remember back in the day, we had to do the 2, 5, 3, 7.
Exactly. Now we're both showing our age. I think where AI is going to bring the world of education is probably still up for grabs. I mean, I think it's still a little bit unsure what exactly the outcome will be. I think that let's look at this in a positive way. I think it's a fundamental change, probably the biggest fundamental change maybe since the birth of the internet in terms of the capabilities. I think it's a great tool for marketers. I think it short circuits a lot of work that testing various variations of words in ads in AdWords when you're putting an AdWords campaign. It can save you so much time in doing that in terms of generating copy options, etc. It can short circuit a lot of the drudge work in marketing that people have to undergo. What I would say though is it probably reinforces the requirement for people to have insights and ability to analyze the data that they do see even more. So, people are paid for their insights and their opinions, and that is going to be enhanced even further, I think. How it plays a role in education and what people learn and what they don't, I don't know how that's going to finish out, because I think it's still important for people to understand the basics, the fundamentals, the whys, rather than just looking up the answer and getting the answer. It's still important to understand why things work the way they do. So I don't think it short circuits your education as much as it might short circuit your to-do list on a daily basis. And I think marketers should embrace it and try and become the department in the company that actually really leads the charge on how best to adopt AI in a business, because it's still up for grabs who owns it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's going to cause a lot of the individual skills, like the videographers, the copywriters, the overall individual jobs to be done will start to kind of get out of the way a little bit, or at least they'll be accelerated significantly, and it will create a lot of disruption. I mean, it already has created a lot of disruption, and I think we're kind of getting to this stage with AI where you will be able to kind of have your own AI marketing team in a sense, maybe one person. So instead of having a team of 15 marketers, you'll have one person with 15 really good AI tools that will be able to do the same job and do it really quickly and pretty efficiently, which is going to cause a lot of problems.
It is. It's going to cause a lot of disruption, and I agree with that. But I also would ask you to think back 20 years to how many paid search specialists was there on marketing teams? How many SEO experts was there on marketing teams? Video content people. So I think it will create new roles as well for people. And it may be that the marketing team could be smaller in the future, but it could be that people are doing different things than what they're doing now. So, yeah, I think it's kind of equally scary and disruptive and equally exciting and interesting at the same time.
Let me ask you this. I'm curious your thoughts on, you're in the education space and you have been for a long time. 11 years ago, 12 years ago, digital marketing wasn't really a topic in universities, right? You kind of went to an institute, you went to colleges, you went to very specialized, places for this. Now, obviously, most universities have a digital marketing program. How do you see the role of universities versus more specialized certifications?
I actually think they can coexist because we work with over 100 universities who might teach marketing programs, and we provide an additional third-party certification for those students. So I think it's where industry and academia really help each other, because we very much focus on the requirements of industry, on the requirements of professionals within the industry. So most of our students are in work already, and they're looking to upskill. So that, I don't think that's going to change. And I think you're right, more undergrads are going to come through, or postgrads with university degrees, but they love having an additional certification on top of that. So I think the two really coexist, because one's coming at it from the point of view of what does a company need or what does an individual need, and the other is coming at it from an academic rigor point of view. So I actually think they solve two slightly different requirements in the marketplace, and we're proof that you can actually coexist really well together.
Yeah, by having the right certifications, at the end of the day, the universities benefit in the long run.
Exactly, and the students love having additional certifications added into their undergraduate degree, because they leave with something additional to put on their resume, and they stand out different from the next person when they're looking for a role.
So I want to ask, we're usually our episodes are around 20 minutes, so I'm conscious of time, but I want to ask you about being a CEO. I want to ask you, a lot of people start off as, founders, and then maybe, start building a team. Walk me through your playbook. What does it take to be a really good CEO? If you could break it down into a little playbook for us, how did you kind of become this leader and get to that level?
I'd probably break it down to three things, right? I don't know if this is a full playbook, but it's the three things I live by. So the first is hire people who are better than you at doing their job. And that's something I learned from a previous entrepreneur. He said, look, if you hire people who are better than you at what they do, your business is going to succeed. So, and that kind of leads me into the second point, which is, and a lot of good CEOs don't do this, but obviously you're not the smartest person in the room. You are sometimes, but trust what other people say and listen, and be humble and listen more than you speak. That's the second thing I would say, because if it's just your answer all the time, then it's going to be wrong an awful lot of the time. So listen to what others have to say. And then the third thing is make a decision and be decisive. So once you've heard what people have to say, make the call and stick with it and move on from there. If it's the wrong call, admit it was the wrong call and be humble to do that. But don't not make a decision. That's actually worse. So I would say hire great people, listen to those around you, and then make the call, and then be humble about the outcome of that call.
Yeah, that's it's sometimes easier said than done, of course, because you always try to find those people and all of that stuff. But I agree. As you lead a team, and as we've led our company, we've only ever grown when the people in the seats are better than I am in those seats, and when I let them make their decisions, or at least provide their insights, and when a big decision needs to be made, I need to make it, and I need to make it with distinction. So very interesting. In terms of, as we kind of like to wrap up with all of our calls and all of these episodes, we're all marketers. We love shiny objects. We love the latest, greatest tactic. So I want you to tell me, of all of your years in the marketing world, what is that one growth tactic that works over and over again? What is that one thing, and how does it work?
Okay, I've got two. So the first one is, somebody told me years ago, and they're right, sales solve everything. Okay, so a lot of marketers like to think long term, and that's great, and it's very important, and almost think of everything but sales. But it's really important you think both short term and long term. Yes, you can have a bad product, you can give it away, you can make some short term sales. But that aside, sales are a validation that your marketing efforts are actually working by people parting with their money. So if your marketing is leading to an increase in revenue, then your direction of travel is generally good. So that's what I would say is you do have to think long term, and sometimes you need to make decisions not for short term gain, but just don't lose sight of the fact that if the revenue is not coming in, something's not working. So that's number one. But the second thing I would say, and I'm sure you would agree with this, is, and this is a more recent last 10-year thing, is know your data and know your funnel inside out. So the more you know about that, the more you'll understand your business, the more you'll understand your customers. And if you can, and like, don't make assumptions about the data. Get in there, really live it, learn what key trends are happening, why something, and why. I think the why is the crucial thing for me. So unless you know that data, then you'll make the wrong decisions. So really, really get to know that funnel start to finish. And that can mean sometimes you think about too much information, which is why the tool you guys have is great for people being able to visualize where, things that are impacting different elements of the funnel. But the more you understand about that, the more you'll succeed as a marketer.
Yeah, and that's a perfect plug for Funnelytics right there. So, I couldn't agree more. At the end of the day, marketing, we tend to think of marketing as this silo, and marketing's job is to pass stuff over to sales. I tend to think of it as just growth in general. Both have to lead to a customer, acquiring a new customer, and then of course we've got to retain that customer in the future as well. And the only way you can do that is by understanding what are the numbers telling us, where are the bottlenecks, what's working, what's not. And if you don't know that with clarity, it becomes very, very hard. You just throw spaghetti at a wall and hope something works, and if it does, you're like, yay, and if it doesn't, you're like, I don't know why. That's very, very fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. Ken, where can people learn more about you?
So you can learn about Digital Marketing Institute at digitalmarketinginstitute.com, and all the socials are there. And if you want to reach out to me directly, you'll find me on LinkedIn with my brand new shiny title of Executive Development Director at BPP Education Group. But you'll find me on LinkedIn under Ken Fitzpatrick.
Congrats again on the new title and the new job. I'm sure it's going to be a fun ride.
Thanks, okay.